A lot of times, because of how society is, we're going to kind of get into this conversation. Society likes to brand things, success, failure, smart, dumb, and so these are all characteristics that impact what individuals believe about themselves, right? And when you believe a lie, guess what happens?
It becomes the truth.
It becomes the truth.
Welcome to another episode of Rewind and Press Forward. If you are in your season 2.0 of either starting over, wanting to starting over, but you're a little later in life and you want to do a little something different with it, this is your resource for those opportunities. So on the show today, I got a good friend of mine, Mr. Joe Young. Joe is now how do I say it? Are you a mental therapist? Are you what is your job position? What is your profession?
Licensed professional counselor associate.
Okay.
So
I want to make sure I got it correct. You want to get it correct?
Yeah, you got it right.
So before we dive in, because I really wanted to talk about men's mental health today, but before we do that, you've kind of done what the show is about. You've made a pivot.
Yes.
So tell us about your journey to becoming a therapist. What did you do before, and what made you decide to get into the arena you're in now?
Well, it's kind of a walk of life. It's been something that I didn't know I was on the path until probably maybe about when I reached my middle 30s. But from the time I was a kid, through grammar school, high school, I was always that guy that people came to, that they shared things with me. And basically, I built trust with people and they just kept coming to me. Mm-hmm. I realized at some point that I had a little wisdom.
Okay.
It wasn't my wisdom, but I realized God had given me some wisdom. But that's kind of how it evolved. But
what did you do before?
How I got to where I am today. So let's kind of talk about that. I am the 10th child of 12 kids.
Oof.
Yeah. And so obviously a lot going on in a family that large, a lot of dynamics. You got to learn your way through how to get attention. You have to learn your way how to solve problems because, you don't always get the attention that you need. You have to learn to discover who you are because there are so many personalities going on within the house, right? Mm-hmm. You're known as so-and-so's little brother, so-and-so's little brother. And so you have to build your own dynamics and your own personality. And I think I kind of started doing that maybe around the time I was 12 or 13. But anyway, I got to the profession that I recently transitioned from through the help of my sister Frida. At the particular time, this was maybe about 1981, 84 probably. She was, her and her friend had a temporary temp agency, mm-hmm. and they got me on at a company, major technology company. And I started with that company in the, what we call the billing and credit side.
Okay.
Basically I'm dialing for dollars, trying to get people to pay their bills. And I got to be real good at that. And I had the opportunity to move over into sales. And I got to be real good in sales. And I found myself moving up the ladder in corporate America. I got transferred down to Dallas for a couple years. I was a sales manager over the DOD. Moved back to Chicago area, business development manager. Came back to Dallas around 2000, and I've been here ever since. But I was moving up the ladder. And I think right around 2010, you know me, Busy, I'm a spiritual guy.
Yes.
I heard God tell me, hey, it's time for you to do what I've been calling you to do, and you've just been putting it aside. And so I've always been kind of a leader of men. Always been kind of a coach for men, leading men, small groups and things of that sort. And so their calling was, hey, time for you to become, a therapist. You've always said you it was always in the back of my mind that I wanted to be a therapist because I absolutely love helping people. You know, you and I have had conversations. You've seen me engage in conversations with people, and it's where I feel my energy. It's where I feel fulfilled, knowing that I'm feeding and guiding other people into their paths of peace, joy, helping them change their mindset. So anyway, to kind of continue on the story of how I got into this transition, right? So decided I'm going to go back to get my master's degree. Mm-hmm. I run into some problems getting my transcript from the last college that I attended. Mm-hmm. And I'm standing in my family room and I'm talking to God. I say, hey, Lord, I can't get my transcript. You know, if I can't get my transcript,
I'm stuck.
Right. I can't, you know, so you are telling me to do this. So I need you to get my transcript. So a couple weeks later, I'm on the plane going to Chicago. Stopped at the university. I was having the issue with the transcript. Go in. I see I can't think of the dean of administration, and African American brother that just got the job, probably 2 weeks into the job. Sit down, talk with him, tell him what's going on. We had a great conversation. He said, "Okay, Mr. Young, give me a couple weeks. I promise you, I'll find your transcript." So 2 weeks later, get a phone call from him. He said, "Hey, Mr. Young, I got your transcript. It was in a box in the basement. We were in the process of digitizing all of the transcripts, but we never got to yours." So that was a sign right there that God showed me. I told you I'll do this.
You asked and look at it.
You asked and it happened. So that was the journey. So went back to school, started grinding. You know, all my friends would always say, "Man, I don't know how you do this. How do you work full time? You're always traveling." You know, on our golf trips, you know, sometimes at night, 3 or 4 hours, I'm knocking out the work, doing what I got to do. So my goal was, hey, at 59, retire from corporate job, transition into being a counselor. My goal was to do it December of 2024, last year.
How far out, you said at 59, how old were you when you made this decision?
I was 54.
54. So you're looking 5 years down the road.
5 years down the line.
You had a plan.
I had a plan.
And you put everything into action. Because a lot of people get stalled. A lot of people want to. And like me, execution is the hardest thing to do. Planning is easy. I can write everything out and have it down. But how do you start to
doing it is the challenge.
The thing. So, but I love it that you had a plan, because I think in the world of instant gratification that we live in, everybody wants it. Well, Amazon messed it up for everybody. You know, back in the day, you ordered something, it's 2 weeks. Now
it's 2 to 3 weeks.
You
right?
want it at your door by 7 o'clock.
You're standing there waiting for the man to drive.
Yeah. Back when we was kids, you would order something off the back of a cereal box. Hey, and then a month and a half later, show up as Christmas.
And hope Junebug from down the street
don't get it because he's seen it.
Exactly.
Your secret decoder watch. But now, with that, what was it more excitement in the process? Because like I said, you're studying at night. You're still doing your 9 to 5, all that. What is it like not to lose focus to get towards the goal, what you look? Now that you've made the decision to pivot, how hard was it to keep the focus?
At times it was hard, but because I knew I was moving towards a purpose, I didn't get distracted. And I had a lot of people in my life encouraging me. I have good friends, brothers, sisters,
That was going to be my next question. How did family help?
I had a lot of
this?
encouragement, man, on those nights when I didn't feel like writing that paper. You just get that extra boost that, you know what, you can do this. You've been doing it, keep going.
I would think that the conversations you were also still having, because even as you were doing this, I knew you, and because it threw me all the way off when you just showed up one day and said, licensed therapist, let's go. I was like, huh? Where did that? But I should have known it, because every conversation we've had, I've always left with homework.
Yeah.
I've always left with something to either think on, or you say, now get back to me with this next time we see each other.
Exactly.
So you were already doing it anyway.
I was doing it anyway because it's a part of who I am. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And because it's a part of who I am, to the word that I used just a few minutes ago, purpose,
That part.
I couldn't help but to be that because it's in me,
The why, I think, is one of the hardest things that we older people, especially men, because men have such a already role of responsibility to others. And when we try to figure out what is our purpose beyond just being a provider,
Sure.
beyond just earning the money, helping rear the kids and all that things, or even if you're single, what is my why? And due to the circumstances, of course, of my son passing away, when this happened, and he left me with the why, we had the talks about when you're going to stop producing podcasts for everybody else and do for yourself. He says, you started over literally on my 50th birthday. I had to start all over again, figure out something, but I didn't know what my purpose was. To take photos, to do videos, to DJ, all that stuff is cool, but sharing the stories to help other people figure out what their why, or how to get to their why, or what to do along the journey of their why, that's my why.
Sure. And I can appreciate, I've watched you, Busy, kind of evolve over the last 6 months into what we're doing now.
Yes, yes.
Like you said, we've had conversations and you've always talked about this is what you want to do. And you had a vision, right? And so the vision, you said you really weren't sure about the purpose. And I would always tell you, you know the purpose, man.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
I would always tell you know the purpose. And sometimes tragedy forges purpose.
It always happens to someone else until it happens to you.
Until it happens to you, exactly.
Never in my life that I thought I would bury one of my children.
Yeah.
And in as deep as the talks that he and I had among life and decisions and things. And the proudest thing was also to see the things that you instill in your children and that you think they don't get it until they become parents or until they get to a certain point, and then you see everything you poured into them come out.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Oh man, that's like crazy. But that's the same thing we were reared about. I was raised, love my mom to death, and I got with her in my latest years, but I was reared mostly by my grandmother.
Yeah.
And that's just straight up old school, little Oklahoma lady with an 8th grade education, but had a wealth of knowledge that I put against anybody's PhD.
Yeah. Well, I think my dad was, elementary school. My mom graduated from high school, valedictorian. Smart, intelligent lady, loves to read. My dad was, although what most people might say, not educated from a traditional way, book smart.
Right.
The dude was smart, man. Had a lot of wisdom. And I still remember a lot of things that he said to me to this day. They just don't leave me.
No. And then you end up passing them on. I'm sure your daughter got the whole how to be and what to be.
Passed them on to my 2 sons and my daughter, and so. And it's crazy because whether they know it or not, they were helping to shape me into becoming who I am from the standpoint of fulfilling my purpose.
Correct.
Even though we didn't know what that purpose looked like back then.
But look how far down the line, and it goes back to my statement of instant gratification. Look how far down the line we had to go to find that purpose.
Yeah.
Or for it to become apparent, maybe that's a better word.
Yeah.
Become a parent, because I done tried several purposes and some work, but I don't regret any of them because I learned from all of them.
Well, that's what, that's the critical thing what you just said. A lot of times people look at things that don't work out the way they anticipated it, and they classify it as a failure, right? Instead of as a stepping stone or a learning, right? And if you look at things that don't go your way from that perspective and look at what is it that I need to take from that, how can I use that not only for me, but to feed into somebody else? But a lot of times, because of how society is, we're going to kind of get into this conversation, society likes to brand things, success, failure, smart, dumb, And so these are all characteristics that impact what individuals believe about themselves, right? And when you believe a lie, guess what happens?
It becomes the truth.
It becomes the truth.
So that right there, let's get into what you do, because this is kind of the conversation I wanted to have. You know, do you think society, social media, all those things, do they create a barrier for people not to seek mental health? We do for our bodies. We take every supplement under the sun. We go to the gyms and all that. But what about our mind? Are people afraid to let it be known that they're going to seek a therapist? Or what are some of the barriers that you see? So I'll break it down into two. Barriers that you see from people in general.
Yeah.
And then men.
Okay.
Because men have pride.
Oh, yeah.
Men have things like that. So give me the general, and then let's break it down a little bit further into men, as far as barriers and people thinking it's not cool, it's not gratis, I'm going to be judged if I want to seek mental health.
Yeah, I got it. Well, so let me touch on social media. I think social media has been a positive from the standpoint of awareness, right? But like any vehicle, messaging vehicle, it can be used for good and for bad. And so you see some horror stories. You know, we talk about social media all the time. Mm-hmm. There's some crazy stuff out there, right? But from the standpoints of promoting the good of mental health, social media is a great platform. You've got a lot of platforms out there where people can go and find individuals that specialize in different practices that, to help them. But to your point, the next part of it was barriers, right? I think the biggest barrier really is the individual themselves, right? And I think the second barrier is not truly understanding what mental health care is, right? I don't know about you, but we grew up and thinking that mental health was for crazy people.
Yes, and that's why I said that if you got a problem, you got an issue, you got to go to the... I ain't gonna be with all the negative connotations. We can get away back in the 70s.
Yeah.
But yes, you thought you had a problem.
You thought you had a problem. And so not truly understanding the value of mental health, the power of mental health, not truly understanding that mental health benefits everyone. You know, it benefits the individual that's receiving it, because as that person changes, he changes or she changes how they interact with other people. Mm-hmm. And so they are benefited from it. And so I think people just don't understand what it is, how it works, and the power of it.
I think the fear is opinions, because people say that, well, you're just trying to force your opinion or your judgment upon me as I go through, or as I'm seeking answers for what I can't decipher myself.
Yeah.
And how do you kind of at ease somebody's mind that I'm taking more of a non-biased approach to hear you, and then based upon your season of experience and your knowledge, let me help you navigate these waters. But how do you get past the automatic wall judgment of, man, you're just going to be judging me because I'm telling you I got all these crazy thoughts in my head, or I've done these things? I mean, that's got to be a challenge when you first get somebody in.
You know what? When you first come in, most people are very hesitant, reluctant.
Right.
You know, even though they've made that big step to come sit in front of me, they're still somewhat reserved. The first thing I do is establish that this is the safe box.
So trust needs to be earned.
Safe box, right?
Right.
And then after you establish the safe box, you start working on building trust. No therapist can help anyone unless they have a strong bond of trust. And that takes time. I don't jump into things right away with my clients. I get to know them, try to understand what they've been dealing with, allow them that safe space to open up and share, and give them the opportunity to find somewhat of what I call the peace and sharing. Mm-hmm. Like you and I, when we talk sometimes, the conversations are, the longer we talk, the more peaceful it becomes from the standpoint of, man, I feel good talking to you. You see what I'm saying? Because now you know that, hey, Joe's not judging me. I'm not judging busy. We're exchanging good information. We're encouraging one another. And so it just takes time. And it takes patience with me as well, with the client, because sometimes I see things right away and I want to jump in. But you have to realize the client may not be ready for you to jump in yet. So
I've had to learn that even doing this.
Yeah.
That takes a lot to sit back and listen. And my wife, I interrupt her all the time because when you're with somebody so long, either you know where they're going or you want to hurry up and get them to the point where you know where they're going anyway. And that's just rude. And then she just shuts down.
Yeah.
Because I'm so busy interjecting. So this has been a great way to practice not to interrupt, not to interject too much. Or I may do it because I don't want to lose the thought.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Do you want to do it? So going back to the pushback, I do want to tap into something that's a little deeper culturally. Mm-hmm. Do you ever notice that it may be harder for, especially with African American men?
Oh,
you
no doubt.
think it's a little bit harder to bring them to the table? Because when you're looking at generationals and generations of, I don't want to call it oppression, but stereotypes.
Yes, sir.
The stereotypes within our own communities.
Yes, sir.
Go back to what you say, busy in the crazy house. He went to go see Joe, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Culturally, do you see a difference in people coming to seek mental health?
Yeah, so culturally there's a significant difference, right? But I know for a fact that white Americans are more to go see a therapist, right? Probably around, I looked at the numbers last night, about 40%, 45% of white Americans see therapists. Then the second highest is Hispanics. I think their number was close to about 38%.
Let me ask you a quick question. Didn't mean to interrupt.
Sure.
But it's in there. But is that in the form of an actual licensed therapist, or could that be like a priest or confession?
That's actual therapists, mental health therapists.
I had to make sure if it's called, what qualifies as that. So, keep going.
Yeah, and then African Americans are right around 28%. So you can see a significantly lower number.
Low.
And then the majority of African Americans that are getting mental health, as you know, are women. Women are always on the leading edge. Women are more open to getting help, more open to, just finding that space for growth. For men, as you said, it's more of a stigma, right? Particularly among African American men. I think there's a huge shift in the awareness that African American men are beginning to take on, and that it's okay if I go to a therapist now. We're still not where we need to be, but there's a tremendous amount of shift, particularly busy with young African American men. Within the last couple of weeks, I have been contacted by maybe 7 young African American men, all between the ages of 24 to 29. And so that's big, right? That's huge. And they have an awareness of where they are and that they need some help. And so going back to social media, I think there's more messaging out there. There's more comments about how mental health has been a benefit, particularly to men. I also, in church, a lot of men are now finding that, hey, I can go to church as well to get mental health services through some of the offerings that they have there. But again, they may not be comfortable because everybody knows them there, right? Mm-hmm. But I do think that the challenge for black men is a couple of things. It's just not something that we do, black men. We don't go to the doctor.
Until it's too late.
Until it's too late, right? We're certainly not going to go and sit down for an hour across somebody and tell them, hey, man, I'm feeling this way, right? We have a hard time admitting that we need help, right? Mm-hmm. And then we are warriors. And so warriors do what? Warriors capture, they conquer, all right? And so we have to get beyond that mentality that warriors also need encouragement. Warriors also need mental health. Greatest warrior I know is King David in the Bible, right? And if you read Psalms, if you read a lot of the that Psalms, you can see, hey, David was struggling emotionally. He was depressed a lot, right? But he always talked about how he got encouragement and help from God, right? So that shows you that even though King David was a mighty warrior, he recognized that, hey, I can't do this on my own. I need help. And I think those are the 4 challenges that black men have with getting and seeking mental health care.
So let's talk about generational patterns.
Yes, sir.
Generational patterns are basically the way that we approach things based on how we were raised. Is that something that you find yourself having to maybe break, encourage, or finding a way a person to live within it? Because to me, it's kind of like DNA.
Sure.
It's hard to teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah.
Get a zebra to change its stripe, that type of things. Do you see a lot of people maybe burdened by their generation? I'll give you the example. I used to work at a renter center years ago. And in the renter center, the grandmother, the mother, and the little girl came in. And the grandmother talked to the little girl and she said, baby, this is how I'm gonna show you how to get over. You get your welfare check and you get your food stamps.
Yeah.
You sell half of your food stamps, 2 for 1, and then you live on your other half.
Yeah.
And then you come in here to Rent a Center and you get your brand new leather couch, you get your VCR, you get your TV, you get your washer, you get all your dryers, and then you pay it with the other part of your either child support or your welfare check. And then you go next door to the store and you get all your hair care stuff.
Yeah.
And it's basically, she was teaching the mother who already knew, and then the granddaughter, how to survive based on the check that they got for the system.
Right.
There was nothing about building. There was
Right.
nothing about getting off of the system. It was living within that. And then guess what she's going to teach her daughter?
You're going to teach the same thing. Yeah.
So combating mindsets like that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're all negative,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just
true.
saying,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
if somebody's coming in and today where this is a pull yourself up by your bootstraps type of mentality, even being a YouTube star, it takes work. It's not going to be given to you.
Sure.
A lot of entitlements going on.
Yeah.
So do you find yourself trying to help deprogram from generations and generations and generations of negativity?
Well, see, I think what happens with that, Busy, there's a couple things, right? So you have learning to the degree that you just shared, right? Grandma's teaching you this is what you do, this is how you do it, girl. Don't let no man get over on you.
That part.
Granddaddy telling you this is how you treat a woman, da-da-da. A man's a man does what you want to do. And so those are things, obviously, that are visual. And what I mean by visual is we can see how they're impacting because they're active. There's other things that I try to get to with clients, and that is that many things, generational things, are at work in us that we're not aware of. So you've got great-grandma's blood flowing through you, and you're certainly going to pick up things from that, but you're not aware of, people say, man, you look just like your great-grandmother, or look at this picture, you and your great-grandmother look like. But we're also impacted by, those people. And you do things and you don't know where it comes from, or why I'm doing this, or why I'm doing that, right? And so those are the things that I try to get into because those are the ones that are the most difficult to break. What you just talked about, those are learning habits, and we can unlearn a person on those things. But when there's things that are going on and individual doesn't understand why they're doing certain things, those are the things that we have to get to because they're right here, right? And so we're trying to change a person's perspective, right? Perspective, everybody's got one, right? And perspectives are just like, anything else. If it's wrong, then guess what? You're living a life that's reflect that. So it's important to, utilize. I use a tool that's called the genogram, and the genogram will say, "Hey, tell me about your mom's side of the family, your dad's side of the family, and let's go back as far as we can. Name your aunts, uncles, grandparents. Who was their brother? Who was their sister? It takes a little work, right? But then when you do the work, find out a little bit about their character. Find out about what they struggle with. Find out what kind of health they had, physical, mental health, right? And when you put that together, many times you can point to person to see, aha, this is what's going on in me, right? And so those are things that are not on the surface, but you have to dig for them and help them understand why. And then once you understand the why, you can put them on the path to overcoming those types of things.
All right. Spinning back into the why, do you see a lot of men our age that are struggling with finding their why?
Putting me on the spot here. I'm busy.
I mean, I'm not trying to get no client information, but I asked that because literally it is the basics of conversation as of late that everybody is really can't figure out what their purpose is.
I'll answer that question. I'm never surprised when I run across a man that's stuck.
That's a great way to say it, stuck.
Right. I'm never surprised when I run across a man and I start talking to the man, and or I run across a friend that I haven't seen in 10, 15 years, and they're the same person. I'm never surprised. So I won't necessarily say it to the question of, how you phrased it, but I think that's
clean it up, make it right.
That's a good way to clean it up.
Right. That's a cleaner way. I guess because when I go home, sometimes it is that, like, biblically, theologically, common sensely. I just made that up. But are we? I figure we're supposed to evolve.
Absolutely.
And when I go home and I see people that I haven't seen in years sitting in the same bar stool in the same spot, doing the same thing, very complacent, but happy. I'm not going to judge you because what I've had to learn. That's, man, if you're happy,
if you're happy right there,
man, cool.
Right.
So be it. It's the ones that complain about where they are.
Yeah.
And I think they put more energy into the complaining and then into changing.
Yeah. Well, change is the most difficult thing to do in life.
It's uncomfortable.
It's totally uncomfortable, right? And so, I have a saying. I picked this up from, I'm not going to mention the person's name, but life is simple. It's just not easy.
And if it was easy, it wouldn't be life.
Yeah.
Are there any changes you would like to see in how people or society approaches mental health, as far as you don't see it as much? Like, I see commercials for every pill for every other ailment under the sun, and I don't see, and I don't want it in a pill. I mean, you're the pill.
Yeah, sometimes a pill helps. Sometimes, that's, I'm not there where I can do that. That's not my line. But I think it would be great if every person, I look back on my life, it would have been great when I'm that sophomore in high school, emotionally changing, physically changing, just trying to figure things out, not really sure about this, not really sure about that, don't really want to talk to my mom and dad, and I get it, privacy types of things, right? That if every student in America is required to go through a semester of mental health counseling at the age of 15 or 16, I think it would be a brilliant thing.
I agree. I wish that it could happen because
you and I
know
both
what's
wish
going to
that
happen.
it could happen, right? You got privacy that parents don't want people to talk to their kids and all of those things.
And
but
that's
you know
where
what
I
I'm
was
saying?
going with it, yes.
I think it would be a major benefit to our society to helping develop and grow the society.
But we have so many people now just, remember we talked about that whole thing about kids being allowed to call themselves identify as furries, and I'm not going to get into the whole genetics thing, but I'm just saying that right there, there's got to be, if that's allowed, then what about the positive part? I'm not trying to even call that negative. I don't know what to call it, but it's just that if you're allowing your child to go to school and wear a tail and cat ears and go pee in a litter box in the janitor's closet, why can't we talk about something positive about mental health and not be challenged or deemed wrong? Because that to me is just not my jam. So I'm not calling it right or wrong, politically correct, but it's just not my jam. But that's another thing too. It's like prayer in the schools.
Just like prayer,
So.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be able to solve that in this conversation. I think it's just, you asked me earlier about barriers. I think that's another barrier that we have in this country with mental health. Society in general. When there is a mass, mass shooting or something of that nature, we begin to look at mental health. How is this person's mental health? Things like that. I think everyone is aware that mental health care is definitely needed. But again, you get to the question of what type, how,
Correct.
So it's always, and because you've got so many voices out there, right? It just makes it more challenging.
So are there levels? Are there different type of, mental therapy? Like, what's the different mental health areas? Like, would you be considered just a certain type, or is everybody kind of general?
Oh, absolutely. There are different levels. There are different modalities. You learn about different theories, and it's always growing. So absolutely, you have people that specialize in certain things, and people that are more holistic in their approach. You have Christian-based counseling.
Yes.
You have cognitive behavioral therapy, which is the most common. You have person-centered therapy. You have trauma specialists. There's different levels, different approaches, different techniques, it's certainly it's growing. It continues to grow. People are learning more and more about the mind. They're learning more about people's behavioral habits, and so we're developing more and more approaches to treat people. So it's just like anything else. It's on the path forward, and the benefit is that you see people more open, as we talked about earlier. You see people more open to seek mental health, although it's not where it should be.
I look at things like marriage counseling.
Yeah.
That's. I don't know if even the marriage is even a thing anymore.
Yeah.
People do that, but they do it before they get married, they do it while they get married, and they do it after they get married.
Well, I laugh at that, Busy, because the one thing I said I did not want to do
was marriage
counseling. And guess what?
You don't do marriage counseling?
No, man. I get a lot of couples, man.
Really?
And you know what? I love it, dude.
So the one thing you said you wouldn't do.
The one thing I said I didn't want to do, I get it, and I absolutely love it, man.
What attracts you to it now?
What attracts me to it is helping individuals build a foundation, helping individuals strengthen their foundation, helping individuals change their interaction, helping individuals become aware of how their past inflicts on other people, bringing people to the center. I love it, man. I love it when you see the light goes off in a couple. I think the biggest thing that most couples are afraid of is conflict, right? Individuals are afraid of conflict. Conflict's not a bad thing, man, if you know how to approach it, right? You can grow from it. The biggest thing is you can grow from conflict. We all have personal conflict, right?
Yep.
But in relationship, we hear the same, man, I just want peace, right? But in order to get to that peace, you have to go through things, right? And so you can't brush aside conflict. You have to learn how to deal with conflict. You have to learn how to speak to one another. You have to learn how to take personal accountability. And believe it or not, these are general things that a lot of people don't understand in relationships, or how to put them in play and play practically. And so I enjoy that. I enjoy coaching and counseling people, married couples. Even though I said I didn't want to do it, I actually really enjoy it.
Well, how do you then stay savvy when you have, now you talked earlier about your millennial, I don't know if even a 25-year-old is considered a millennial anymore.
I have no clue what they are these days, man.
All these things, but let's just talk about, even though our experiences, because my grandmother always used to tell me, I done already been to where you trying to
be. Yeah.
No matter what it is, it doesn't. It's timeless.
Yeah.
But the thought patterns and all that. So me at 53 coming in to see you, somebody at 70 coming in to see you, but then versus 18 or a 21-year-old coming in to see you. How do you keep up with, because the thought processes, you're talking about 3 different stages of life.
Sure.
So we're all at 3 different ways of thinking.
Yeah.
How do you stay connected with all 3 different generations like that?
I do a lot of reading. I'm a huge reader, man.
I see you came on with books.
I came with a book. I'm not going to show it, but I always got a book with me. You can see the title, right?
I see the title, and it makes sense.
Right. There's continuing education courses that as therapists we take. There's a lot of journals out there, mental health journals that you read. So it's constantly reinforcing learning, reading, right? But more importantly, 18-year-old, 30-year-old, 60-year-old, 70-year-old, they're all individuals. And so I look at them as the individual that they are.
Okay.
And that's basically what I do. And I use the same approach, build trust. Building trust with the 18-year-old may be done a little different than compared to building it with a 50-year-old, but that's the foundation.
The question I've always have, I have a friend I went to high school with, actually. I've known her since high school, and she's here in Prosper, right up the street. She's a Christian therapist, but where does the therapist go when they need therapy?
We go to a therapist.
Just like that?
Just like that.
Because there's no way that you're taking all this in, and you can only hold so much of it without, and it's not about telling other people's business, but like your struggles, your challenges,
absolutely.
your humanity.
Yeah.
How do you, a therapist goes to see a therapist?
A therapist goes to see a therapist.
I've always wondered that. So you,
in addition to going to see a therapist, I practice self-care.
That was my next question.
So self-care for me is spiritual, mental, and physical. So my relationship with the Lord, mental, reading, practicing mindfulness, always monitoring my thoughts, my behaviors, emotions, understanding what's going on within me. And then the physical part, being active, exercising, watching what I eat, those types of things. I love golf.
Yeah.
So I
still can't swim.
Had to get my time in with golf, and and a good cigar is always helpful as well.
Always.
So, yeah.
Do you think in today's world where it's work, go, what you just said, your self-care, do you think people don't take enough time out to actually decompress and become aware?
Yeah.
Because you don't even, how do I even know that I need to see a therapist?
I think people know, but I think you have a couple challenges, right? The first challenge is a lot of people, if just being real, the time that it takes sometimes to do self-care, your job may not afford it. You know what I'm saying? A lot of corporations do offer programs where you can step away to do community service types things for a year. But those are sometimes difficult to come by. You have to apply, and they have to be approved. And when you come back, your same position may not be there. And I think a lot of times, for some people, is to drive home. When I'm driving home, I turn on my favorite music, or turn off music.
I've driven home with just the sound of the road.
Just a silent road.
That's it, yeah.
And that's we're going to talk about that in a little bit, hopefully, right? That's a beautiful thing when you can ride in your car with no music, no radio, just you and your thoughts.
Have you ever driven home and don't remember the journey?
Oh, yeah, bro.
Like, I'm in my driveway and I'm like, yo, how did I, but you're so wrapped up in what you're thinking.
But positive thinking.
Oh, yeah, no, not negative. It is
just
that time.
Enjoying myself, I want to go back to men, and I may take a little flack about this, but that's all right. I'm a man. I can take it.
It is what it is.
You have a lot of men that struggle with, you have a lot of people that struggle with being alone, loneliness. You can be in a room with 20 other people and you're feeling lonely, right? You have a lot of men that struggle
I've
with
had
that.
this conversation several times
Exactly.
with different, including my son. My son struggled from this.
Yeah, and I'm not going to get into the reasons why, because they're different for everybody.
Everyone, correct.
Yeah, but my thing is, if that's you, you need to go talk to someone. You need to go get some help, because you were never meant to be lonely, right? God said it's not good for man to be alone. And so God gave man a woman. But before God gave man the woman, who was with the man? God would come talk to him, right? So we are actually made to interact with one another. And if you're lonely in your thoughts, that means that you struggle with building those emotional connections that you need. You struggle with even being emotionally aware of yourself, right? And I went through that. I went through that phase where I would be sitting in the room, man, with a bunch of people, and I'm just feeling like I'm all alone in the room, like lonely, like feeling actual emotions of loneliness. And I had to start digging into what was going on with me. So mental health is just not it was for me too. I had to take my own mental health journey to get to where I am. And I continue that journey to continue to evolve, to become a better Joe. Like I told you, I got my own therapist. I got other people that I talk to. So, you have to, self-awareness is a powerful thing. We talked about this. Change comes about 4 phases. The first phase is awareness. Okay. The second phase is an acknowledgement or an acceptance. Acceptance of that awareness, acknowledgement, and then action. Right? You have a lot of people that are actually stuck in the first phase. They are aware. They may not be aware of what's going on with them. They not be. Some of them are aware of what's going on, but they never get to phase 2, 3, or 4. All right? And so, to your point earlier, you go home, you see the guy that you saw 30 years ago sitting in the same spot. I'm pretty sure he has an awareness of what's going on. He just never was able to get to those final steps for help. But the good thing about it, even for that person, it's never too late, man. It's never too late.
I was told that birds, because of their DNA, have to fly south for the winter.
Yes, sir.
Bears have to hibernate.
Yeah.
But the human being is the only mammal that can literally change its direction at any time it chooses to.
You just used the key word, choose.
Choices.
So the biggest thing, the one thing that we have as human beings that no one can take away from us It's choice.
I've been reading the Daily Stoic
Yeah.
every day, doing my workbook, and that's what the first part of it's about, clarity.
Yeah.
And it is the choices you make. Now, the consequences that happen due to those choices, you deal with them good, bad, or indifferent, but it is by choice, and that what you can control, you control, and those you can't.
Yeah. Yeah. And so our choices are influenced by a lot of things. Some things we're aware of, some things we're not aware of. We kind of talked about that earlier, generational things that are working within us, you know, or the story you gave about your, you know, the young lady with her grandmother, right? But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, the choice is ours. We make those choices, right? And a lot of people, you know, mental health therapy is really helping people come to a place where they can make better choices by understanding thought processes, eliminating negative thoughts to change, you know, behavior, becoming more aware of the emotions, where those emotions are coming from, and, you know, addressing those types of things again, so you can make choices to live out the life that you desire, you know. So yeah, life is about choices, man.
Where would you like to see the future of mental health go as far as your profession?
Okay, so I want to see the African American community take advantage of mental health services. Back in the day when we were growing up, you know, there weren't any services in our neighborhood. There weren't any mental health clinics, or, you know, there weren't any. Resources has always been a problem. But there are more resources are available. Still not maybe necessarily in African American neighborhoods, but there's so many different ways that you can now get mental health. You know, you don't necessarily have to, a lot of everyone right now can get virtual counseling. You know, most therapists do virtual counseling. So that is breaking the barrier of, as far as access is concerned. Awareness, you know, there's commercials, you see it. There's social media, you see individuals promoting and talking about their path with mental health. So I would love to see that 28% number jump up to, man, 60, 70, 80%, you know, because there's no excuse, Busy. There's no excuse. It's about choice, right? You know, we hold each other accountable, right? Okay, back in the day, if we saw someone that was struggling, you know, we didn't necessarily hold them accountable and say, man, you need to go talk to somebody. You know, you're struggling with this. We just kind of like,
let him lie where he's at.
Let him lie where he needs to lay, right? But we've evolved as men. I see it with you, you see it with me, where we're not afraid to say, hey, Busy, yo, bro, what's going on with you? You know, where are you at?
Do you think that's an age thing? The older we get, the less we're afraid, not afraid, but we're more forthcoming.
I think it's part of the age thing, but I also think it's part of the awareness thing. Part of the awareness that, hey, it's the maturity, it's just an awareness thing, and it's an accountability thing.
It's time to make your brand stand out in today's crowded market. We're here to help. We bring your vision to life through stunning, professional photography, creating visuals that captivate your audience and elevate your brand. Whether you need imagery for your business, website, or social media, our expert team ensures every photo tells your unique story. It's time to enhance your presence and make a lasting impression. Let's create something extraordinary together. Visit thebusinessgroup.com today and allow us to reintroduce you.
I'd like to leave with one thing, you know, my daily personal accountability trait is what I call the cognitive triad, right? I think I
break it down.
I'm gonna leave it, see if I got it. All right, so the cognitive triad, I know your people probably can't see this,
If you give it to me, I'll make I'll put a diagram up.
So you can see it's a triangle. At the top right side of that triangle, I have the word thoughts. The left top, I have emotions. The bottom, I have behaviors, right? And so for me on a daily basis, it all starts here, examining my thoughts, making sure that my thoughts are truthful, that I've identified the lies in my thoughts. I've cast out the ants, automatic negative thoughts that come in all the time. And so as I'm controlling, being mindful of my thoughts and understanding where my thoughts are coming from, basing my thoughts in truth, then my emotions and everything will be lined up. And my behaviors will reflect that I'm sound, right? But what happens is you get the majority of people are on the left side. They're being moved by their emotions constantly. And obviously your behaviors are going to be up and down. And what we need to do is take some time to be mindful about where's that emotion coming from? What is that thought associated with? Is that thought true? Right? Behind the why, we always discover the lie if we look deep enough. So I want to leave you with that, Busy. Say, man, thank you for having me on.
No, man, thank you for being on, man.
I appreciate you.